All right.
That was what they were doing and plug them in. Yeah, it's.
So do I just start speaking? Or just call us?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling our meeting to order and welcome to the Metropolitan Washington Air Quality Committee. To start off, I'll ask members who joined us virtually to enter their name. I think most have entered their name and affiliation in the chat box so that we'll know all who are in attendance. And when we speak to each other, we'll know who is speaking. I think that's always a good practice. The meeting is being recorded, as is the tradition. And I'd first like to start by asking committee members to identify themselves. And we can let's start with our virtual team.
Madam Chair, Dave Snyder on by phone. I won't be able to put in the chat function, so.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
This is Jim Ponicello from VDOT.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
Yep, and this is Tom Ballou, Virginia DEQ.
Welcome, Tom.
Good afternoon, Sylvia Glass, Loudoun County Supervisor.
Welcome.
Shannon Moore, Frederick County Government.
Maryland Department of Transportation, Virginia Burke.
Virginia, this is Jen and Cobb. We can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm going to try again. Actually, I'm going to log out back in a sec.
Roger Thanell, MDE.
Welcome.
Amalia Pleektam, Calvert County.
Welcome.
Steve Martin, Montgomery County DEP.
Welcome.
Colin Burrell, this Department of the Environment, Energy and Environment.
Tanisha Briley, City of Gaithersburg.
Welcome, but your voice is a little low, so.
Shayna Fulcher, City of Tacoma Park.
Welcome.
Kirk McPike, City of Alexandria.
Welcome.
Pat Abrams, stakeholder. And Pat Abrams, stakeholder. I am having a problem with the audio on the WebEx, so I'm on the phone only.
All right, Ted, we can hear you well on the phone. Thank you. Welcome.
Rich Dooley, Arlington County.
Rich, I think we heard part of your introduction. Your voice was trailing off.
RM on Metro, Rich Dooley, Arlington County.
Welcome. We're happy to have you.
I'm going to do a second attempt. Maryland Department of Transportation, Virginia Burke. Any more audible this time? Thank you.
Kristen Weaver, City of Greenbelt.
Welcome. I can't see any better. All right, and so those of us in the room, we'll start with you.
I'm Sunil Kumar, Principal Environmental Engineer in Department of Environment Program at COG.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jeff King, Director of Climate and Energy Air Programs at COG.
Leah Boggs, Senior Environmental Planner in Jeff.
West Garden, legislative aid to the council.
Kristen Mink, Montgomery County Council, District 5.
All right, welcome.
Tax current Tony Harvard contact number 4.
Always good to have you
Tom Denoga, Chair of the Prince George's County Council.
here. All right, I think we're almost, and then, yeah,
Tim Masters, COG staff.
yes.
Hi, everyone. Jen Desmond, COG staff.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and so happy to have you all here. We are at a point where we start our meetings and we provide opportunity for comment from the public. And I want to ask Mr. Tad Alburn to provide his comments at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and WEC members. I really appreciate this opportunity. And you do have a copy of my comments and also a supplementary letter. I'm going to focus today on the draft SIP that you're proposed to approve later today. My name is Tad Aburn. I was an MWEC member for years. I was the MDE Air Director for years. I've been doing SIP work for over 30 years. I continue to work with EPA on a whole bunch of issues, one of which is environmental justice and SIPs. I do commend the work that MWAC has done to help clean the air over the past 10 years. It's amazing work. You should all feel very proud of it. It's great work. However, the emerging issue of hotspots in environmental justice communities is a really hot topic. Last month, Dr. Russell Dickerson provided you with a briefing. As part of that briefing, he talked about the emerging issue of hotspots in environmental justice communities, often communities of color. He called the measured air pollution levels in the district's Ivy City environmental justice area alarming. Chair Bonds reacted, said this concerned her, and that the issue is something that the committee should take up. Specifically, the SIP includes nothing on environmental justice. It needs to. EPA is now requiring this. If you read their legal analysis, you can see how they're requiring it. During this interim period, EPA is working on guidance. It's not out yet, but in the interim, they expect the SIPs to include an attempt to deal with environmental justice. It's very important to include language that is in there to deal with the concept that if the SIP requires emission reductions, implementation of these measures must not make environmental justice problems worse or create environmental justice problems, which it already happens. The SIPs already make problems in environmental justice communities either worse or they create them. Additional information on my comments today is provided in a letter dated 5/24. I've also offered to provide technical briefings on the air quality data that shows that these hotspots exist, and the reason that Dr. Dickerson called the levels in at least one area alarming. MDE has done a report on another area where they directly linked the high fine particle levels in the Cheverly area to the Washington, D.C. plume. So I would respectfully offer I would be happy to work with the technical committee or any other group on how to resolve some of these issues and how to build something into the SIP. My letter contains actual specific language that could be inserted into the SIP to deal with this issue for the time being. And in summary, I do not believe you should approve the SIP today until it includes the required information on environmental justice. I have been working closely with some of my old contacts at EPA, mostly out of the North Carolina headquarters office, and it's very clear to me that SIPs that don't deal with the issue of environmental justice are going to be called what's called incomplete. They're going to need to be updated to include something, and I would encourage you all to get busy and start to work on that piece. I'd be happy to provide my help if that's what's needed. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, committee members. I really appreciate the opportunity to make public comment.
Thank you very much for your comments, and you're correct. We have your package, and we will examine it further, and thank you so very much. Now we will begin our committee report. Let's start with The first is our Technical Advisory Committee. Tom Malou.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This will be very brief because you're going to hear about most of these items during the meeting today, but Technical Advisory Committee did meet on May 9th. We talked about three things. We talked about the plan update for 2008 ozone standard that is before you all today, and the budgets, updated mobile emissions budgets that are in that plan. We talked about two EPA proposed actions on both light duty and heavy duty vehicles, improving the air quality emissions coming from those vehicles. And then we also talked about the beginning of the 2023 ozone season and what we've had or what we've seen thus far. That's the end of the report.
Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from Era Panda on the AC PAC chair.
Oh, thank you and good afternoon, Chair Barnes and MVAC members. The
I'll turn
committee
this trans on now.
Sorry.
Everyone else, mute their audio feed, please.
Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon, Chair Barnes and MVAC members. The committee's main update today is the 2023 Climate and Energy Leadership Awards campaign launched on Earth Day and runs until June 30th. The awards program is in its 9th year, continuing to highlight role models that have implemented innovative care stewardship projects and programs, particularly those that engage and serve the region's underserved communities. There are 3 award categories, and some past winners include: in the education sector, this is an early winner, Fairfax County Public Schools. In 2016, they won for their Get to Green program, which was a program to promote student learning and action using the environment as a foundation. Second, in the government category, Prince George's County Sustainable Energy Program won in 2018. This program involved offering comprehensive energy solutions that enhance quality of life and maximize energy savings in underserved communities. This program includes the county's Transforming Neighborhoods Initiative Clean Energy Grant. And the final award category is in a non-government organization, which is the Rise and Shine Foundation. This was an innovative student-led project called Can We Do Something About Food Waste, which aims to divert food waste from incinerators or landfills to compost facilities and save food from restaurants and grocery stores from becoming food waste and provide it to vulnerable members of the community with food insecurity. These are the type of projects and initiatives we want to see. Now we are taking nominations, so I encourage you to nominate a project or program. I hope the awards flyer has been included in your meeting agenda. Meeting material, sorry, not the agenda. And you can also contact COG staff, Leah Boggs. And that is all I have for you, Madam Chair. And APEC's next meeting is on July 17th. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report. Now we'll hear from our own Jen. She'll talk to us about the Clean Air Partners.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair Bonds. So Clean Air Partners launched their summer initiatives this year in conjunction with Earth Day and Air Quality Awareness Week. Air Quality Awareness Week is always held the first week of May. And what it featured, it was a campaign all about tips that residents can do to help clean their backyard, help improve the air with simple tips that they can do in their own backyard. The campaign featured a traveling backyard bubble exhibit, and we were at a number of different local Ace Hardware locations, including one in Baltimore, 2 in DC, and then 1 in Alexandria. And we have a big thanks to Virginia DQ, to DOEE, to DC SEU, and to MDE, as we were able to have a number of events, 4 of those in-person events, based on their donations to the campaign. The campaign also included a contest that was held through social media and also with digital ambassadors and digital influencers. And we were able to give away battery-powered mowers, battery-powered weed trimmers, leaf blowers, and also propane grills. We are in the process of putting together our next formal campaign, which will be held in August, and that is what Clean Air Partners has designated Ozone Action Month. And that campaign is going to focus on tips to reduce emissions from vehicles. So it's going to be a transportation themed campaign. So we will be having some in-person events as well that will be able to engage the community and our residents. It will also feature media outreach and social media. And then during that campaign, we will also be partnering with Commuter Connections to help spread the car-free day messaging. So I look forward to that campaign in the month of August. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And finally, we'll hear from Tim Masters. He's going to talk to us about climate, energy, and the Environment Policy Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item I wanted to provide an update on was already spoken in the ACPAC update. So I won't go into detail on that, but that's the Climate and Energy Leadership Awards. I'll just say again that the application period is open through June 30th. If members have a great candidate in mind, please submit a nomination, and I'll quickly drop a link in the chat. So if you do have anybody that you have in mind for a nomination, please do nominate them using that link in the chat that I've just sent through there. The second update is on the new Regional Electric Vehicle Deployment Working Group, the REVD Working Group. They met last Thursday, that was May 18th, where members reviewed and discussed the draft's local jurisdiction electric vehicle ready checklist. This checklist provides a comprehensive overview of steps local jurisdictions can work on to prepare their community and government fleets for transportation electrification. It provides actions, examples, and resources with steps that governments can take towards community vehicle electrification efforts. The checklist has 7 sections. There's community planning, zoning, building codes, permitting and inspections, government fleets, public education and outreach, public safety and security. Staff heard a lot of great feedback on this draft checklist thus far, and the final checklist will be made available on COG's EV Clearinghouse this summer, and I'll drop a link to the clearinghouse shortly. The last update I have is on EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Grants, the CPRG program. This program provides grants to local governments to develop and implement plans for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and other harmful air pollution. It's a 2-stage grant program, the first being, phase 1 being focused on planning, and the phase 2 grants focused on implementation. So because DC is eligible to receive the state level allocation of up to $3 million, the DC metropolitan area will not receive metropolitan statistical area based allocation. So instead, DC's Department of Energy and Environment is applying for a total of $3 million. But EPA encouraged DOE to work with regional jurisdictions to be eligible for the maximum funding. So DC government put out a request for partners with $1 million available to the selected partner, and COG has been selected to partner with DOE on this grant. So the CPRG program has an air quality benefit component as well. It's focused on GHG emission reductions, but also criteria pollutant reductions. And this program also aims to accelerate environmental justice efforts in communities overburdened by pollution, and will help localities tackle these challenges. And that concludes my update.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that my native land is doing some good work. Thank you for that. Now it's time for our local and state updates, and we have approximately 5 to almost 10 minutes, maybe, if we have a lot of reports. But we'd love to hear from the jurisdictions that want to talk about this important subject.
Oh, okay, I can give some initial, a brief, or first of all, in Arlington County, this is tax card down in Arlington County, Virginia. So we are very pleased to report that we finally after many years, we tried to get our government action together and, focus in the connectivity and interoperability between departments. So we have a climate emergency coordinator right now. The county manager's Little Arlington County is a county manager. Type of government, and this filling this position and getting this forward is a significant advancement for us and our ability to effectively advance environmental goals, with specifically also carbon reduction goals and emissions reduction goals. There is a very long list of actions that our staff is working on. We have significant advancement in building decarbonization tools. We are going to be advancing. Ms. McBride, who was here before, she informed the CPC about progress we're making there. We're going to be paying attention on building decarbonization. We have a additional density, a green incentive that comes with a good additional density. All this is reducing the emission. And of course, we continue to be extremely invested in supporting public transit and supporting, reducing congestion and supporting multimodality and walkability. I should say, and this is important for the specific idea of air quality, the specific area of air quality. In March, the Arlington County Board made a took a decision to change the zoning, the uses inside the zoning of Arlington County. So we allow now for more for so-called gentle density or missing middle density in vast areas that have been until now be reserved exclusively for single-family homes. One of the deliverables of that, expected deliverables of that, is that we will make it easier for more residents to walk, to take transit, to have more access to services closer to where they live. And therefore, we expect to reduce the need for, literally millions of trips that could be saved this way. So, and at the same time, this distributes density in a way that allows us for better atmospheric circulation in an urbanized county, and it delivers these goods also for communities that are not as that have been challenged until now, that are disadvantaged and marginalized. So that all this is, in my opinion, progress on the environmental front, and will have a measurable result on that front. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. I just have a question. Am I hearing that you're moving a little away from single households to maybe multiple households in a community?
Correct.
Okay.
This is with keeping the by right envelope, which is very generous in Arlington because it was modeled after the district FAR at the very beginning. Yes. So it's closer to one in average. In this same envelope now, we will have new construction and existing buildings will be able to house 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 households.
Wow.
Where it fits, not everywhere, but it depends on the lot.
Any other jurisdiction? All right, well, I'll take the liberty to welcome you. You are, give us your. Very happy to have you. Welcome. All right, we are right on time. ozone season update. We're ready for that report.
Thank you.
Mr. Kamal.
Okay, so I'm going to give a quick update on where we are. As far as air quality data is concerned, and this we don't see them. We don't see them run typically from April through October, which is in roughly in line with our summer season as well. Next slide. So the slide shows the calendar for our daily peak 8-hour average ozone levels, and that's in parts per billion. That's short is ppb. The data covers from period March 1st through middle of May. As you can see here, we had 3 code orange days so far, 23 code yellow, and rest were all green days. 2 out of 3 code orange days occurred in April, 1 in May. Next slide. This chart shows the trend in the number of ozone accident days. As you can see here, compared to the late 90s, where we usually we used to have very high number of ozone accident days. Now we are down to just a few in last few years. The chart also shows the breakdown by color codes. As you can see, we don't see any code purple. We don't even see code red these days now. The last 4 years, 5 years, and we still have just a few code orange days. And you can see if you focus on the last 4 years, you see that we have everything around 2, 3, except that in 2021 we had some 8. Read the slide is kind of far, but yeah. But on everything, we have been everything very low number of ozone express days. So we made remarkable progress in terms of reducing our ozone express days. Next slide. So this slide again shows that the relationship between the ozone and high temperature days. The high temperature days are defined by the days when the temperature exceeds 90-degree days. So we are comparing those high temperature days to the number of ozone express days. As you can see, there are 2 clearly distinct periods here. Before 2009, we had a lot more accident days shown here in the purple line compared to the number of 90-degree and above days and shown in the red line. And that means that there were quite a few accident days when the temperature was not even in 90 and we had accidents. And the reason why we're comparing to 90 degrees is that because there is a very strong relation between temperature and ozone. The higher the temperature in general, the higher the ozone levels. Now compare that to situation now after post 2009 period, we are seeing a lot less accident days compared to those high temperature days. And the reason is that before 2009, the emission levels were very high, didn't even take 90 degrees temperature to 1,000 accidents. Now temperature accidents levels are so low that even with 90-degree plus days, many in 90-degree plus days, we don't see, not necessarily see an ozone accident days. This year we didn't have a 90-degree days. We still had, now we got 3 accident days already in the season. So this season is turning out a little different. We will keep an eye on that. Next slide, please. This chart shows again the progress we have made in reducing our ozone levels. The trend in the parameter called design value. This is a parameter. This is can be calculated based on 3 consecutive years worth of air quality data. And EPA uses it to evaluate an area's air quality attainment status with respect to a particular pollutant. As you can see, with respect to the current ozone standard, which is published in 2015, is 70 parts per billion. The chart shows that we made quite a dramatic progress in reducing our ozone design value, and now we are down to 67 based on the latest, 2022 data. We had to attain this 2015 standard in the end of 2020, but we did not attain that standard. But now, as you can see, based on the 2021 data, we did attain the standard. Now we're down to 67 ppb. This is, last few years we have seen a dramatic drop in the ozone design value, particularly because of the exceptionally low emissions that we saw during the pandemic, and because these, in the 2022 data includes 2020 data, which is basically we all know this, driven by pandemic. But so this is the first year when we will not have the 2020 data. So we'll see how it turns out. So this season in that sense is going to be important. Next slide, please. So just kind of through the table here to, let you know how, how we are doing in terms of complying with the current standard that we attend in 2021. As you can see, the design value is best from the fourth highest ozone level in the area. And I chose these two monitors because these two typically happen to be the highest monitor. So we're keeping an eye on these two monitors in particular. One is the Macmillan in District and Bellsville in Maryland. The fourth high ozone that will be required this season to the maximum fourth high ozone that will be required to keep compliance with the current standard is in the second column. That's 73 ppb. For Bellsville, it's going to be 74 ppb. And compare that to actually what we have seen so far in this ozone season data as of May 15th. We are 65 and 62. So we are well below those two marks. But as you say, we are barely into a month into the ozone season. We still have until end of September. So this numbers could change and we'll keep updating it. But that for now we look good, but we'll keep an eye on it. Next slide. I'm not going to details in this, but this table explains the reason why we have made progress in reducing not only ozone but PM 2.5 standard, which we'll see in the next slide. But in short, I will say that a number of emission control programs that were put in place at the federal, state, and local levels have all contributed to reducing our air quality, emission levels in this area, resulting in better air quality. Next slide. The chart shows the calendar for the 24-hour average particulate matter 2.5 levels. That's one in microgram per cubic meter. We are in compliance with all the PM 2.5 standards. However, we are still keeping an eye on PM 2.5 because there was one time when we were actually non-attainment for one of the standards. So we always also look at the PM 2.5 data. As you can see here, no code red or not even code orange. We did not exceed so far this year. You can see there about 10 code yellow days and rest were all code green days. So this data looks even better than those on. Next slide, please. This chart shows the trends in the PM 2.5 exceedance days. Again, you're also seeing besides total number of ozone exceedance days in each year, you're also looking at the breakdown by color codes. You can see here, we have dramatically reduced the number of fine particle exceedance days in this area. We still see, one code red at least until 2022, and that's all the, that one particular code red. It all occurred basically on July 4th, and so that could be very well attributed to the effects from the fireworks that we had. But we haven't seen this so far here. We didn't see anything last year, so that's good. Next slide, please. Okay, so the PM 2.5 particulate matter has two different standards. One is an annual standard that was published here in 1997 at 12 microgram per cubic meter. As you can see here, with respect to the trend in the ozone design value, sorry, PM 2.5 design value. Again, design value is based on 3 years worth of air quality data. You can see we have made dramatic progress in reducing our PM 2.5 levels in this area. The line has kind of flattened in recent years, just like we saw the same trend in ozone. But the main point in the slide is that we are well below the 12 microgram per cubic meter standard. Next slide. So this is for the 24-hour daily average PM 2.5 design value trend. Again, similar to annual, we see the same trend. Now we kind of flattened, the line is kind of flattened in recent years, and maybe we have seen actually some uptick by 1 or 2 microgram per cubic meter. But overall, if you look at compared to the 35 microgram standard, we are well below the standard. Again, I just wanted to also kind of inform you all that EPA has recently proposed revising the standard, and it could be reduced from just the annual standard and mainly annual standard could be revised from anywhere from 9 to 10. That's what EPA proposed, but they are taking comments as low as going to 8 microgram up to 11. So we will keep an eye on that. When they just finalize, we'll bring it back to you and see where we are stand in terms of compliance with that standard. 24-hour standard, they haven't really proposed a new standard. They're keeping the 35 microgram, but they are taking comments as low as 25 micrograms per cubic meter. So we'll see how that turns out. Next slide. Yeah, this is another way to look at the progress we have made the AQI air quality index, and this includes all pollutant, not just ozone PM, but PM10, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. And we have compared the AQI daily AQI values from 2014 to 2023. This includes 10-year worth of data. If you look at the top of the top row in 2014, you will see a lot more yellows and oranges and red. And compared it to in 2023, so far we're seeing a lot more green and much less yellows and orange, and we don't see any red. So very remarkable progress, as you can see, we have made in terms of reducing our levels for all pollutant, not just ozone and PM2.5. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, this is another way of looking at just the air quality for this year, and this includes ozone and PM2.5 AQI. This gives you a nice visual presentation of this data here. As you can see, most of the days we had green or good air quality. There was some moderate. They included that yellow, rows, and then we have 3 code orange, and we didn't have any code red of the air quality. So that's where we are. Next slide. This shows again the historical, progress in reducing our pollution for ozone and PM2.5. The faint blue color, area that shows that 20-year average ozone PM2.5 AQI values. Then you have a gray line, thick gray line showing the 5-year average, and then you have the dark blue line which shows the current data. As you can see, the current data trend, you can see clearly seems to be overall below the gray and the blue lines, and which means that the current data is below the 5-year average as the 20-year average data. So this shows that we keep making progress. Right. Next slide. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Yeah.
Hey, I'm looking at slides 10 and 11, it's more clear in 11 looking at the 24-hour PM values there. So looking at the uptake, you noted that it's only a couple of points and we're still well below the standard. But I wondered if you had thoughts about, even if it's only a couple of points, it's like, we're now looking at values that are comparable to what we were seeing a decade ago, and it looks like it's been ticking up over the last few years. Thoughts about that?
Okay, so you're comparing the last few years data with years, like you're saying that basically the data now is pretty comparable to what we had in 2014 and 13, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so last few years you can see in starting 2019, it has moved up from 20 to 21 to 22. And we'll update the slide with the 2022 data when EP publishes that and see how it goes. So there has been some slight uptick in that 1 microgram per cubic meter. It's not a lot, but it could be, there is some all year-to-year variation. There's always some year-to-year variation, and this is a annual data. We are including the whole entire year's data. So that also includes if you look at the PM2.5 incidence trend, I mentioned that there are some code red happened in July 4th fireworks. So there was very high numbers, and even though they were just a few hours there, the total average was like upwards of 50 plus micrograms, which is very high. And that kind of changes the average. And it makes it look bad. It makes it go up from 2021, 22, but those occurred just one day. But, you know, they were so high that the average was. So, yeah, so, and, I'm not sure what we can do much on that by was it July 4th.
Well, but that would be something that would happen annually, right? So that wouldn't, in itself wouldn't necessarily move the trend line year to year unless there were different types of events or occurrences, right? That happened in the year prior.
Living in the district the year that that red spike happened, I could say with pretty certainty that there was kind of a meteorological, almost like a dome over the city, and you know, looking down to the White House area and the mall, it was all just trapped in there.
Yeah,
And it moves up the hill to big hill and monitor.
There was a phenomenon, remember this fireworks are all at the night time. And there is a meteorological phenomenon called inversion, when you have, you know, higher temperature near the ground, lower temperature near the ground and higher temperature of just the opposite of what you see normally. So in this condition, all the emissions that comes, it gets trapped. It stays close to the ground, doesn't disperse very fast. So there are a couple of monitors in district very close to the fireworks where it really spiked. And that changed the whole, you know, average, and that's always reflected in those.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Madam Chair, thank you, Mr. Kumar. Always good to be reminded how things are going and how far better we have been doing in the last 7 years or so, constantly. We seem to be plateauing somehow in our ability to further improve. So that must have a reason. So there is something that is more difficult to deal with rather than before. I'm glad your comment on that.
Yeah, so yeah, you can see, you know, to a certain extent, PM 2.5 and both ozone actually, you know, see there is a last period, the data seems to have kind of leveled down. And the reason is that, you know, a lot of these control measures were put in place some years ago. And from the on-road sector, mobile sector, or even point sector, and, you know, so as the vehicle fleet changes, you know, replaced, the older vehicles get replaced by the newer vehicles, and all the control programs, you know, the benefits from those programs start subsiding. So and there is no new program to, you know, bring the emissions even lower. So at that point, we will still start seeing this, and we haven't done an attainment plan in years now. Attainment plan is that's when the region actually puts the new controls and that. So we have been working mainly on the maintenance plan because we attain the standard. So there is, I think the states have introduced some controls from the power plants as part of their other efforts. But in general, we haven't seen, you know, a very strong control measures in recent years. And so the benefit from the older measures now has started to subside as the fleet changes or the things take place. So that's what you are seeing here. And we also are, you know, implemented lots of measures and have difficulty finding some new measures to, you know, identify that are cost effective with reasonable to implement and things. So, and so, yeah, that explains.
Madam Chair, to allow a second one. I would, in the, you mentioned that the EPA is studying reducing the particulates standards. So is that the annual down to 10 and the monthly, the 24-hour down to 20?
Yeah, the annual there, what EPA is proposing is between 9 to 10. And, but they are taking comments as low as 8 up to 11. So there's a difference in what they're proposing, but what they're taking comments on. So going as low as 8. And so if that happens, that obviously that will put us in non-compliance because, you know, the last data point shows it 8.8. So
are we at any rate asked to provide comments as well? Would it be that an ongoing process?
We already commented on the PM 2.5 in the February meeting, and this committee.
I'm sorry,
yeah. So we already commented on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, well, we really want to thank you for this report, and I believe we are at a point where I will entertain a motion to approve the report. And a second.
So moved.
All right, so moved. And second. All right, thank you. So we can now vote, and this is for everyone, those that are virtual as well. Okay, all those in favor signify by a sign of aye.
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 And I see a few more ayes coming in. Raised hands, and those opposed? Anyone opposed? I think we have one opposition. All right, well, the majority by far voted in favor, and so the report passes. Thank you. We are a little ahead of schedule, so we can now talk a little bit about the joint comments letter on greenhouse gas vehicle standards. And
Chair Bond, can I jump in? We need to go back to item number 5. Number 5.
Plan.
okay. Oh. We are to approve the plan for public comment period. And it's important that we do that because approving the region's update to the 2008 ozone standard maintenance plan for public hearing and comment purposes is where we are in our agenda. If you have your agenda before you, note that EPA is currently reviewing the draft document. And should they have any substantial comments, the plan will be put back to this committee for discussion before starting the public comment process. And I see on the slideshow, our maintenance plan update. You recall Mr. Kumar mentioned that we are currently, there's been limited work on the attainment plan, but most of the work has been done on the maintenance plan. And that's the document you would have before you now. Any comment on this document? Oh, you want to walk through this?
Yeah.
All right, okay, as well, okay.
Okay, Ken, I'm going to give you some details about the plan, the maintenance plan that is we are revising for the 2008 ozone standards. The next slide. Just give a quick background on why we are doing this, why we're revising our maintenance plan for the 2008 ozone standard, which is the old standard. Now we have a standard which is much stricter, published in 2015. But just to give a quick background, that EPA published the 8-hour ozone standard 75 parts per billion, short for ppb, in May of 2008. After revoking the previous standard of 0.08 ppm or parts per million, which directly translates to 84 parts per billion, and it was published in 1997. So when EPA published that the 75 ppm standard, they designated the Washington region as a marginal non-attainment area. Marginal non-attainment area means it is very close to the actual standard, and EPA didn't think that it will take much to get into attainment. So that's the lowest level of non-attainment area you could get designated for. And that was done in 2012. So then after we saw starting in 2015 that Washington region actually attained the standard in 2015, and then has since in compliance with the standard. Following this, the Washington region submitted a request to EPA in 2017 to redesignate the area to attainment or maintenance along with a maintenance plan. And the maintenance plan is basically shows, demonstrate that how an area will be complying with the standard even in the future. So following that, EPA redesignated the Washington region to attainment or maintenance area in 2019. Next slide, please. So we submitted that in with the plan in 2017. EPA redesignated that in 20. Sorry, we submitted it in 2017, and EPA redesignated us in 2019. But now we are in the process of updating that particular maintenance plan. And we have drafted the plan revision, and we will be discussing the details shortly in the next new slides. But let me explain why we are updating this maintenance plan. The reason is that the initial maintenance plan that we submitted in 2017, it contains what we call motor vehicle emission budgets, or short called MVEVs. These budgets are basically the maximum amount of emission coming from motor vehicles that could be allowed in the region. So that those limits of motor vehicle emission budgets are set in the maintenance plan. And those budgets were developed using EPA's old MOVES 2014A version of the on-road emission estimation model. Now, once these budgets are approved by EPA, the Transportation Planning Board uses these budgets to show transportation conformity, meaning that the regional transportation plan, they make sure the regional transportation plan does not result in emissions going above that limit or motor vehicle emission budget limit. So we use these budgets, TPB uses these budgets to demonstrate conformity with the 2008 and also current 2015 ozone standard, because we don't have any new budget for 2015 ozone standard. So this current budget in 2008 maintenance plan serves to demonstrate conformity with the both 2008 and the current 2015 ozone standards. Next slide. So now the issue is that EPA recently revised that the particular model, emission estimation model, and it's called MOVES 3. And now TPB is required to use this model to demonstrate transportation conformity. Once that MOVES 3 model was published, TPB did a preliminary analysis to show that, and that showed that the MOVES 3 model now produces much higher NOx emission compared to the older MOVES 2014A model. And this could pose issues for conformity, as the now higher NOx emission estimated using this new model would most likely cause the region's emission level to exceed the motor vehicle emission budgets of MVEVs. We don't want that. So for that reason, we need to update those MVEVs or budgets in the old plan using the revised MOVES 3 model, which is the latest model. Since this MOVES 3 model also produces non-road emissions in addition to the on-road emissions, and we have seen that the non-road emissions are also different, very different from the non-road and on-road emissions produced by MOVES 3 are very different from the those produced by the MOVES 2014A. We also decided to revise our non-road emissions. Next slide. Now, before we go into the details of the maintenance plan, I will just give some basic information about what are the 4 different emission sources in the maintenance plan because we have to prepare emission inventories for each of those 4 sources in the maintenance plan. First is the point sources. These are the large industry or electric generating unit power plants that have a clearly defined stack where the emissions come out. So those are called point sources. Examples are power plant and other big industries with the stacks. Then you have a non-point, or they're also called area sources, and these are smaller sources that are scattered geographically. Individually, they're not a very high emitting sources, but together they definitely are a significant contributor to the emissions. An example will be like wood stoves or portable fuel containers, automobile refinishing, and those kind of small things. Then you have what we call non-road or off-road sources. These are engines and equipment and vehicles which operate off the road. For example, lawnmowers, construction equipment, marine engine, aircraft, railroad, etc. And then finally, we are familiar with on-road sources, the motor vehicles like cars and trucks. So these are the 4 sources for which we have to prepare the emission inventory in the maintenance plan. Next slide. So the maintenance plan contains emission inventories for two, precursors of ozone. Those are volatile organic compounds, short called VOCs, and then is a nitrogen oxide or NOx. And we prepare the emission inventories for these two precursors for 3 milestone years. The base year is 2014, the immediate year 2025, and the final maintenance year is 2030. So the initial plan contained emission inventories for VOC and NOx for these 3 years. Now, in this revised plan, we decided not to touch the 2014 base year. There's no need for that. We just decided to update our on-road and non-road inventory using the latest NOx 3 model for 2025 and 2030 only. We didn't make any changes to the point and non-point source inventories. I also wanted to bring to your attention that we have been in constant touch with EPA in this, the process of revising this plan, and we have sent our proposal. They agree with this changes, so we're good on that. Next slide, please. So after revising the maintenance plan, revising those on-road and non-road inventories in the original maintenance plan, here are the emission levels, and it's important to look at this chart because there is a requirement that the intermediate year 2025 and the final year 2030 emissions have to be lower than base year 2014 emissions for both VOC and NOx. So in this chart, you're seeing that 2025 and 2030 emissions for both VOC and NOx are much lower compared to the 2014 levels, and that's good. So that helps in approval of this maintenance plan. Next slide, please. I also wanted to throw this slide here to just show what are the main contributing sources to overall VOC emission in this area. So we looked at the emissions from all 4 major sources that I just mentioned. I looked at all 3 years. As you can see here, non-point or area sources were still the largest source as far as VOC is concerned. So they individually they are very small, but together, nevertheless, they constitute the highest emission. Contribute highest emission, and then you have the the on-road and other non-road sources. Moving to the next slide, please. This is for NOx emission. As you can see, the on-road sources were a very highest contributor in 2014. However, the contribution in 2025 and 2030 is gone down. You can see the pie is kind of the piece of the pie for the on-road emission is shrinking, and point source emissions, the pie is actually a piece of the pie is increasing, and it may look like that the emissions from point sources are going up. It's not the case. If you compare 2025 and 2030 emissions with the 2014, they are much less. So the pie is shrinking, but just the different pieces within the pie are changing. So the point here is that now the point sources are a major contributor to NOx emissions now. And on-road and non-road emissions, non-road is pretty much same. It doesn't change much. We don't have any new controls in non-road, and that's one of the reasons why the emission is not gone down as fast as we were expecting. But on-road contribution is going down. So that's yeah. The next slide. Just we saw this trend, but since this is in the maintenance plan, we had to include this here. As you can see, compared to the the old 2008 standard 75 ppb, we are since in 2015 we have been below the standard. So that's one of the criteria for approval of maintenance plan. It has to be that your design values have to be below that standard. So we're doing that. Next slide. So the important part of the plan update, the whole reason we did this update to the maintenance plan is because of we needed a new set of motor vehicle emission budgets for both VOC and NOx. And as you can see here, the bottom 2 table, one the left side is for NOx and the other for VOC, and all these figures are in tons per day. So we developed 2 sets of MBEVs, one for 2025, one for 2030 for both VOC and NOx. And so in the leftmost column, you're seeing the milestone years, 25 and 2030. Then you have the NOx inventory, which is shown in the tons per day. then we have added 20% of the total inventory to, and added them together. So inventory, and we call it safety margin. So we have added 20% safety margin and on top of what the NOx emission inventory and VOC inventory, and to develop our new motor vehicle emission budget. So the last column, the new MBEVs, the headline, the heading of that basically is generated by using the inventory plus safety margin. So, and we did the 20% safety margin. The reason we added safety margin 20% is that, very frequently EPA's emission models change, emission models change, transportation planning assumptions change. So we don't want to be in a situation where if things change, then we again go back to the same problem of not complying with the conformity. So we add some 20% safety margin, so we have room, to still comply with the, requirements of the NACs in terms of transportation conformity. And as you'll see in the next slide, even with those safety margin included, the total emission in 2025 and 2030 is much lower compared to the 2014 level. So you can see here, the blue, the blue portion of the bar shows the mobile emission inventory that comes out from the model, and the red dot portion of those bars, they show the 20% safety margin. So as you can see, even with this 20% safety margin included in 2025 and 2030, we are 45% and 57% below the 2014 level. So, we're good in terms of probability of plan because we are maintaining that criteria that 2025 and 2027 have to be lower than 2014. Next slide. Same thing for NOx emission. The margin is even better here. We are below 59% and 70% respectively in 2025 and 2030, even after including the 20% safety margin. So we're meeting that criteria of lower emissions in future years. Next slide, please. So that was the details of the plan revision. Now, as the Madam Chair already informed you that we are requesting in this meeting the members to approve the maintenance plan update for public hearing and comment purposes. Of course, this is with the understanding that since the draft copy of the document has been sent to EPA, we haven't received the response yet. So in case if we receive some substantial comments from EPA that would require some major revisions to the plan, then we'll bring those comments and suggested response from staff back to you for discussion and a plan approval. And only then we will move forward with our public health and public hearing and comment process. So, but since we wanted to move forward with the process, we're requesting that you approve the plan with that understanding. And those documents are available as a link given for the NVAC on the NVAC website. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that report and a clear understanding of what the maintenance plan contains. Are there any questions? Yes, please.
Thanks. I found Tad's comments in the letter that he submitted compelling. It's an important point, I think, that he raised around the environmental justice area and ways that, we've historically been falling short with the hotspots and so on. And of course, one of the concerns is that the EPA might not approve this as a result, but whether or not, I would think that we would want to address that. How does it affect our timeline and our plans to make a revision that would insert at least some of the baseline language that he suggested that we, don't want to cause greater damage and we want to make improvements, acknowledging also that we would presumably want to put in some stuff about implementation and monitoring and so on. But how would that impact the timeline if we were to respond to his comments by making the suggested amendments?
Yes, Mr. King.
So just a couple of points, but then I think it'd be good to ask the states for some input in response to your question. But, a couple of observations. One, this is an older SIP. And so far, our understanding is, and the states can clarify that, you know, we've been following the specific EPA guidance on what is required for this particularly targeted action. You know, this is a SIP that doesn't have any control measures. It's really just a SIP to amend the budget for many purposes. And so, you know, our sense from talking to states is that currently the issue that Tad's referring to maybe isn't directly relevant to this. And Dan, I should add that the states have their own process to deal with equity in state implementation plans. There's a number of other types of SIPs, like the infrastructure SIP and attainment SIPs and the like, that, you know, the states have their own public comment hearing process, their own equity process. I think the issue that Tad's raising may be more applicable to the next SIP that we develop, with the 2015 standard, because that will actually have control measures in there. But I defer to Tom or Roger. Do you guys have any, I don't know who's on from DOEE. Do you have any response to the issue that Tad has raised as it relates to this particular?
Yes. Is that Tom? Yes. Okay.
Yep, this is Tom Blue again. I would second what Jeff has already said. But again, the purpose of what we're doing here today is approving the plan just to go out for public comment. Really what Mr. Aburn has done is provided his comment, and we want to get a comment from all other interested stakeholders. The one thing I would say in terms of the EJ issue is that we have had EPA involved in discussions of this plan and the selected update of it, which is really just dealing with multiple source budgets. And they've raised no issues about or concerns that environmental justice was not being addressed or mentioned in the draft that we put together. So, you know, if that becomes an issue with them, then we will deal with it when we understand what their comments are or what their requirements might be. But at the moment, using existing guidance, we have done exactly what we need to do in terms of putting this revised, updated SIP together.
Did you say Joseph?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. The volume just changed all of a sudden after Tom was done talking. Yes, DOE is also supportive of what Jeff had stated. You know, we do think that these issues that Tad brought to light are important to deal with, but the 2015 ozone NAAQS maintenance plan that we'll be moving forward with in soon will be a holistic look at a new plan. And we think that that would be the appropriate time because we are just updating this for the mobile vehicle emission budgets and haven't really analyzed or looked at the other issues. And it is already a plan that has been accepted by EPA otherwise.
Yes, I think I see Roger.
Yes, we agree with both Virginia and Joseph there, Tom and Joseph. This is really, this plan or SIP revision, you have to remember that the SIP is a collection of plans and permits and regulations and programs and everything else. This one is simply because there was a change in the model that EPA required for us to produce mobile emissions. It doesn't change the fleet mix. It doesn't change anything else. It was only because EPA changed the model. So we are very concerned about air toxics and environmental justice in Maryland. We have programs across the state, in Curtis Bay and elsewhere, Cheverly, and we're doing modeling, and we are very concerned about environmental justice issues. But for an old 2008 ozone plan, it just doesn't seem appropriate to put it in here.
All right, well, thank you. Anyone else to add?
Madam Chair, thank you. You know, what Mr. Kumar, after thanking you for the presentation and the work that goes into that. So I see that do I understand it correctly that the new model actually shows that in the out years of 26, 25 and 2030, that we are actually performing a little bit better than we assumed before? Or is it about the same?
So the emissions in actual world has not changed. It's just the estimation of by these models that change. So we use the most 2014 A version in the old plan. And now EPA requires us to use the most 3, which is the latest model. And TPV's analysis showed that this most 3 produces much higher NOx emission compared to the old model. So the estimation is now higher. It's not that the actual emission in the actual world has actually changed. Because of the higher NOx emission now, the way our old budgets were set at lower NOx emission level, so there is a chance that we will exceed the emission budget. So we just going to update the old budget done with the old model with the new model, and that will allow us to demonstrate conformity successfully.
From the political communication of that, this remaining safety margin, it's just huge. So actually, I don't want anybody to misinterpret that. Oh, we can be, relaxed, and environmental justice this, and or this, we can be relaxed. No, actually not. We have to be able to say that we perform better, and that's our, it's just EPA standard. It's not that, it's our standard, and we have to remain underneath that. And I think that this is an important message to give us as a side communication about this. And I wouldn't call it safety standard. I would say, performance margin or something.
Oh, yeah. We have used different phrase. We use transportation buffer. We use transportation buffer, not safety margin, but technical EPA's technical term for dealing with safety margin. But we have called transportation buffer. I
perfectly understand, but just don't want anybody to misinterpret that. If we can perform better, we still should stick and play in our league and perform the best we possibly can.
Manassas, any thoughts? All right. Okay. Yes.
I have a couple questions. So Mr. Ballou, I believe, stated that the position of the environmental leaders or agencies was that EPA guidance is consistent with what the position is. So my question is, has the EPA been asked this specific question?
We have been in constant touch with the EPA staff on this. They have been participating in our technical advisory committee meeting. We also been, emailing them.
So they've been asked, should we be revising for environmental justice? And they've said it's not necessary.
We haven't asked specifically because this comment we have received is after we submitted those draft copy to EPA. But we sent them initial proposal. We told them that these are the things we are going to include in this SIP revision, and whether they agree or not, and they agreed with that. And they haven't brought to our attention any new requirement other than what they referred to us for is called most 3 policy guidance, which EPA asked us to review and follow that guidance to develop this SIP revision. So they didn't indicate that there is any upcoming guidance or there is any current guidance. We are not aware of any official guidance of that.
Okay, so Mr. Abram said that EPA for future SIPs is expecting environmental justice component. Is that correct?
Based on his comment, we know, but we haven't seen any even draft guidance document on this.
What you referenced in the newer SIP on behalf of the COG region, when is that expected to be done?
So once we submit this particular SIP revision, the next step I think the states are considering is to submit a maintenance plan for the current wilderness standard. And that will be it like a true kind of maintenance plan. We will have a control and contingency measures. That if EPA, when and if they come up with those guidance and they require us to include those EJ issues in our SIP to include them. So that's it.
Schedule in 2024 timeframe.
We will start sometimes, we're expecting this revision to be submitted sometimes and end of this year, September to December. So we'll pick up that work early next year. So it's gonna take about a couple of years to develop the plan.
But at this point, the COG staff has not looked at any particular provisions regarding environmental justice for the future SIP.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah.
We haven't even started work on that, so.
Well, would you be planning on including environmental justice component as you go forward?
Certain, no doubt if the guidance required it, there's no question we would do it.
Well, if required,
I
yes,
think
but-
there's potentially enough interest both with this committee, with TPB, with COG, with the states to maybe do it voluntarily, but that's a question that hasn't come up yet.
I think it just came up.
Yeah, it did.
It's my interpretation.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yes, it did.
Yes.
I'll stop questioning, but I support Ms. Meek.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this very healthy discussion, because I can add to that conversation. Certainly in the District of Columbia, there are always considerations as it relates to the environment and justice for those who live in the various communities that feel that they're most impacted. So I think that if we would today, if we can approve the plan before us, and then also send a clear message to the team that we also want maybe a SIP that deals with environmental justice. Maybe that is also appropriate, not for submission, but for the beginning process of hearing from the various communities within our jurisdiction, because I think it's an issue that it's before us today, but it's probably going to hit us harder in years to come, particularly as we are moving to even reduce the emissions more so, which is the plan through this maintenance program. That would be a recommendation I'd like to put on the table and see if that is suitable for our group. All right.
We need to make a motion on that?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to move the recommendation to include environmental justice venture as the wait for the feedback for this initiative.
I was really motioning that we approve the plan that we have before us today. And then we also move to the next step would be within our, within COG, that we begin the process of looking at environmental justice issues, which would be a separate, plan. So that's kind of like what it was. So moved, all right.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Seconded. was
Second, now we can have discussion.
Okay. And ahead of myself. I just wondered if the consideration of having a SIP that's dedicated to environmental justice versus having environmental justice being a consideration within each of the different SIPs that we're creating, right? So as we are creating a particular measure, making sure that we are considering what are the environmental justice impacts that we should be considering in this particular plan, as opposed to a separate environmental justice SIP, which would probably, relate to many of those different individual issues.
I mean, that was a priority for the EPA director, Mr. Reagan, wanted to integrate environmental justice reviews and evaluations in everything across agencies. And so we should also always keep that in mind as something that's part of any recommendations or the letters or things that we're doing, and not as an afterthought.
Yes, and it makes plenty of sense. I guess I was reacting to of the report that indicated that we have not received any guidance on environmental justice. And so trying to make sure we follow the guidelines that we have before us. And then because we know that environmental justice is a tremendous concern across the country and in our region, that we need to, as a jurisdictional body, COG, to really take a very close look at that and to put together a plan of action. You know, as we are trying to relate to the maintenance plan, as we're trying to move to an attainment plan as such. So thank you very much for that.
If I may, there is it's absolutely clear that the current administration sees the environmental justice, and thankfully for the first time, and as a condition for success, not as a deliverable, but as a condition for success of the territory policy. This is a political position with which I align, our entire jurisdiction aligns. But it needs to be specified, and we have to put measures and, the planning infrastructure of that so that we can perform and hold ourselves accountable. So, for example, our ACPAC, right, our advisory committee is can attest to that, is already working on this framework, and they have already provided a first deliverable on that. The CIPSI, for example, was making the same question as to when are we going to see and what are we going to see as a useful tool to actually assess the environmental justice relevant impacts. Emissions is only one. A lot more. So that's already the works. I think it would be a good thing to put a footnote here that something we are really, this is important to us, and that I would have added something.
All right. Is there any further discussion from any of our virtual members? As an example. All right. Well, hearing none.
Madam Chair, hi, Dave Snyder, Falls Church. I just wanted to say that SIPs are a technical compliance issue, and we need to make sure we do that. Environmental justice is on our agenda, and it will stay on our agenda as an organization through COG and the various other organizations. But I think we can't lose sight of the fact that if we don't submit an appropriate SIP that complies with whatever the guidance are, a lot of negative things can happen from that. So, Madam Chair, I'm very much in sync with where you're going on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any further comment? All right, and I recognize we are a tad over time, but I think these issues are important. We're talking about our air, our living in this community, as we all know. So at this time, I will call for the question, and all in favor of submitting the maintenance plan update as proposed, and then furthering our work concerns about environmental justice and a separate document that we move expeditiously on beginning the preparation of. If you would vote yes, I'll entertain that vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed? If you're voting no? All right. Hearing none, I think it's unanimous. Vote for moving our maintenance plan update forward. And thank you very, very much. Very quickly, we will move to the joint comment letters on greenhouse gas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to run through this quickly, in the interest of time, but, just, to give a brief summary of these, proposed rules. So EPA, proposed, two rules on April 12th, 2023. The first one is the multi-pollutant emission standards for model years 2027 and later, light duty and medium duty vehicles. And the second one is greenhouse gas emission standards for heavy duty vehicles, which are phase 3 emission standards. So that first rule, the one aimed at light duty and medium duty vehicles, builds on EPA's final standards for greenhouse gas emission standards for passenger cars and light trucks with the model years 2023 through 2026. Through 2032. It's building on those previous standards. These new standards are aimed at model years 2027 through 2032. Same thing goes for the heavy duty vehicles. EPA is proposing stronger standards for heavy duty vehicles model year 2027 and also progressively lower standards, but still stronger standards through 2032. I'm gonna quickly skip over this and just make note that comments are due on the light duty vehicle and medium duty vehicle rule on July 5th. And comments are due by June 16th for the heavy duty vehicle rule. So the recommended actions that we have here are to approve these comment letters. I will share each one in turn real quick and kind of give a brief overview of those letters. So the first one is the light duty vehicle and medium duty vehicle comment letter. We follow the same type of structure that we have in previous letters on this topic before. So the first paragraph is really just stating our support for the proposed rule for stronger standards. The second paragraph basically gives some background behind MWAC, CPC, and the Transportation Planning Board. We then discuss in the following paragraph kind of the importance of federal leadership on this item. And then the following two paragraphs are really focused on criteria pollutants and the benefits that will be realized through these standards for NOx and particulate matter. The following two paragraphs are then focused on the greenhouse gas emission benefits. And we kind of end off with just restating that federal leadership on this area is really important. We also do mention kind of that environmental justice aspect in terms of the impact of reducing criteria pollutants on health and air quality in the region, and restate our support for the letter. The heavy duty vehicle rule letter follows that same format. By the way, we do have these on the MWAC page for this meeting. But again, it follows the same format here. Just a few of the emission benefits realized from this rule are changed in the greenhouse gas emission standards paragraphs and the NOx and criteria paragraphs. So I won't take up any more time. CPC approved the letter with no changes earlier this morning. We're asking for MWAC's approval today, and then this will go on to the Transportation Planning Board's steering committee on June 2nd. And hopefully we can get approval there and then submit before the June 16th deadline and July 5th deadline for both of these rules. So I'll stop there. If there are any comments, questions, I'm happy to take those, and yeah, we can vote for approval when ready.
Do we have any questions, Mr. Masters?
None online at the
All
moment.
right. All right, we will start with I'll entertain a motion to approve the comment letter on the light and medium duty vehicles?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. In a second, all right. All in favor, would you signify with sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Hearing none, we say we have a unanimous vote on the light and medium duty vehicles. Now, entertain a motion for the approval of the comment letter on the heavy duty vehicles. Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, all in favor signify with the sign of aye.
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 All right, those opposed? Hearing nor seeing none, a unanimous vote in favor of approval of the comment letter on the heavy duty vehicles. Thank you. And now we'll move to the work program and budget. Jen, you're on.
Thanks so much, Chair Bond. And I will go through this as quickly as possible. In fact, some of the information in the work program that I was going to talk about, we've already discussed within the meeting itself. So I'll go through this very, very quickly. So the FY 2024 work program covers the period of July 1 of this year, 2023 through June 30th of 2024. You can move on to the next slide. So how I've laid out the presentation, I'll first go over some of the main priorities that are listed within the work program and budget. Then we'll take a look at the funding for the program. We'll take a look at expenses by core work program area. And then the last number of slides have more of a breakdown and some more detailed information about each of what is included in each of the core work program areas. However, the slide presentation is just highlights. There is much more detailed information in the document with deliverables and specific tasks. So moving on to priorities for FY 2024. You have already heard about an update about the 2008 ozone maintenance plan, and in fact, even some information about the schedule for that. So as was already mentioned, we expect if all goes as planned and all goes on schedule, we will be able to finalize the 2008 ozone maintenance plan by the end of this calendar year. So we still have about 6 more months of work to do in the first half of FY 2024 to finish up that work. And then once that work is done, we will then be able to move forward and start working on that 2015 ozone maintenance plan. Now, a couple of things to point out. Within previous work programs and budgets, we have taken into account a couple of different options for the 2015 ozone standard. We were planning on and kind of working towards either putting together a maintenance plan and redesignation request or putting together an attainment plan. As the data currently shows, it does look like we'll be moving forward towards a maintenance plan. That is what is reflected in this work program and budget. If by chance we have an unprecedented unprecedented summer with a high number of code orange days, high number of exceeded days, and our data then shows that we're no longer meeting the standard, then at that point in time, we'll have to shift gears, reassess, and determine whether whether or not to move forward and do an attainment plan. So just kind of keep in mind, we're planning for a maintenance plan. However, the work program is always flexible in that sense. Within here as well, so again, those main priorities are those plans, but within here, we also have, and Takis mentioned, the Air and Climate Public Advisory Committee is in the process and has already started updating their environmental justice toolkit. This is something that NWAC approved an update on at their February meeting. The last EJ toolkit was developed, I think, back in 2017. NWAC did approve ACPAC to begin that work. So as you already heard, that is in process. We are planning and shooting to potentially have a draft ready by the end of this work program, but do expect not to have a final until probably FY 2025, but just be made aware that's also another priority within this current work program. I wanted to take a quick mention about conformity and working with our TPB staff. That is also another higher priority item that we include actually in every work program. It's something that we do annually. NWAC staff and NWAC work very closely with TPB and TPB staff in order to review any conformity analysis, provide public comments on that. And then lastly, I wanted to mention another priority within the work program is part of our public participation program. And this includes not only supporting our Air and Climate Public Advisory Committee, but typically what we do is every year is we do some outreach to a different variety of stakeholders. And those could be our NWAC members, members of the public, media, and we inform them about different regional air quality issues across our region. And for example, in the past, we have done some outreach regarding the region's air quality improvements. We always like to share, what our data is showing, what the trends are, and then of course, promoting our member initiatives and ACPAC itself. So we can move to the next slide. So funding contributions for the upcoming fiscal year. So NWAC is funded a third by our local members, a third by the transportation agencies, and that's through TPB, and a third from our state air agencies. So this table shows what was approved in the current FY 2023 budget and what is requested in the FY 2024 budget. I'll just make note of the final row, which is the total. You can see how this year's requested budget compares to last year. It's about a 3.8% increase. So FY 2024 is slightly higher. Another thing I wanted to mention is we do expect some unexpended carry forward. So what we are suggesting is for the local contributions and then the air agency contributions is to use the unexpended carry forward. So what that will do is enable us to keep the funding level at FY 2023 for local and state, and we're able to use the carry forward to balance everything out. We can go to the next slide. So the work program itself is broken up into 6 main core work program areas as listed here. And the next slide is a breakdown of expenses by each of those core work program areas. The first 3, emissions inventory, regional control measures, and our transportation conformity, that's where the bulk of the technical work is done. And that is about just shy of 2/3 of the total budget. And then we have our public participation, our NWAC support, and our project management, which is a little bit over 1/3 of the budget. And again, you can kind of see the breakdown here in terms of the percentage of the total budget for each of those fall. So moving on to the next slide. And so I'm not going to go over these one by one, but these next 3 slides are some of the details that are included under each of the core work program areas. A lot of these things we've already discussed regarding the technical work that's going to be done for the different plans that we're doing. Those kind of fall under the 1, 2, and 3 here, core work program areas. I do want to make note within our regional kind of control measures work. That also includes not only the necessary work that needs to be done for any type of plans that we're going to be putting together, but also for NWAC staff to assist our local members if they're developing any type of program, and we are here to provide assistance to do that as well. Okay, moving on to the last 3, 4, 5, and 6, public participation, NWAC support, and program management. Just wanted to make mention, and here I've already kind of touched on our public participation, which includes ACPAC, Environmental Justice Toolkit, and some of those outreach opportunities. Under NWAC support, just think of this as support for every committee and every committee under NWAC, every subcommittee under NWAC, and of course, including NWAC itself. And then our program management, that is to implement the FY 2024 work program, develop next year's or the following fiscal year's work program, and all of that financial and grant work done. And lastly, I know I'm going through this very quickly. Lastly, our process, the whole work program development process starts with the budget committee, where they have the first crack at taking a look at the work program and providing their input and making edits. Then it does go to the Technical Advisory Committee. They had their official sign off on the work program back in April last month. And then we are here today to vote for final approval of the FY 2024 work program and budget.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I have a question just about I know we mentioned the dating the environmental justice toolkit. I see it under the public participation section.
Yes.
Is this going to be just based on the public advisory portion, or is this going to be, as we just discussed, across all programmatic areas?
So the Environmental Justice Toolkit is specifically will be led by the Air and Climate Public Advisory Committee. So that will be one project. Now, related to what we just discussed previously about weaving environmental justice into other plans that we are doing, we do have, I just want to let you know, I just double checked to make sure we included it within the work program. We do have information in the work program, in the document itself, that does say that we will consider equity in any control measures that we are putting together. So that is included in there. And yes, so we are covered.
Ted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I understand that a lot of the technical work is matching or, compliance, work with, what we actually do for general considerations of air quality. And the second part, so I remember one of our previous meetings, we had a presentation on other types of emissions, specifically methane and gas leaks, etc., from utility drivers. And is there any capacity to follow up with these things, to continue some work on these? I don't remember the name of Professor who Dickerson, yes, who gave the presentation. But it was quite interesting to see how much you measure when you drive around, and you actually measure. You just don't rely on your standard point. And it's also relevant to environmental justice, because where we measure is where we see, and where we don't measure is what we don't see. But specifically in this, since there is a lot of discussion right now about, methane and very potent climate gases, and I know that we don't owe a compliance report on these, but is there any thinking among staff of incorporating this?
So great question, and I'll pull Jeff into this as well, because that does kind of fall under the hat of CEPC, and NWAC and CEPC work very closely together. Jeff, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's been an interesting decision made quite some time ago to, continue to have NWAC focus on the criteria pollutants and CEPC handle the greenhouse gas component, given the overlap. As you're aware, the CEPC program in general has never really had that, measurement piece other than the greenhouse gas inventory, which is more the mathematics, but we don't really have a program to do the actual measurement of greenhouse gases like methane. But having said that, where those conversations are happening the most from that I'm aware of is MDE has a weekly call, and depending on the week, they'll bring in these types of research teams that are looking very closely at issues like this. I find them really interesting, fairly academic, but definitely educational. But it hasn't, we've not yet got to the point of figuring out if or how there's a way for kind of the air monitoring teams on the NWAC side to kind of interface with this CEPC team that you're the chair of. We have a lot on our plate, and I know particularly the methane piece is quite interesting, and maybe something we would want to do a special project on. Something to keep our eyes peeled on, but
Mr. Chair, the Chesapeake Bay and Water Resource Policy Committee, and when I was chair, I had to request an equity lens focus on every aspect of the meeting. And so when I think about air quality control and evaluating across the region and knowing that poor health outcomes result from poor air quality, it's something that we should be looking at as we are looking at air quality control facilities. Who's living there? What are the health outcomes? And how is that relating to the work that we do? We're just going to produce technical aspects and now evaluate the ramifications of poor air quality control and start holding entities accountable. What are we doing?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
I'm Lori Ann Sales, I'm a council member at large in Montgomery.
Very pleased to meet you, Sales. I appreciate your comments very much on this issue because when I saw Professor Dickerson's chart, I was like, where do I live? And I found where I live. And I said, oh my God. And then I said, and you know what happened? I started telling people east of the river, that's what we call, Ward 8, Ward 7. I grew up in Ward 7, but I now live in Ward 5, and I live like downtown Mount Vernon area. And I was like, I'm almost in the red zone. So I started telling people where it was a little green, a little blue. I said, stay in Ward 8. You're in the best place ever, And really, you're right. It is kind of exciting looking at that chart. And people will want to understand that. But on the other side, they may be reactionary like me, who will say, oh, I can't go there, can't go there. There are issues. So I think it has to be rolled out in a very smart manner so that we can figure out what are the pollutants in that air that is causing, that particular red spot, versus the green spot, because there are vehicles certainly all over. And the airport, affects everyone, in DC. So I was just wondering when we start looking at the hot spots, what are we really doing? I mean, and how can we do it effectively so that we are helping a community to think about how they can reduce pollute, So we just need to be thoughtful before we jump out there with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, dissuade people from visiting or living in certain communities, but I don't want people to live in communities where we have elected officials who are supposed to be looking out for their best interests. And if there are pollutants, and there's companies or organizations that are contributing to those pollutants, it's incumbent upon us to hold them accountable and ensure that they're doing what they need to do to lower those pollutants in the atmosphere. And so, we're writing, these letters that we've just agreed to. And I'm hoping that in the work plan, that we're integrating opportunities to evaluate where we see these red zones and how we can work with those areas to lower those emissions and prioritize those areas.
I appreciate that. And as I think about that red zone, as has been identified, I'm wondering what happens at Gallaudet University. I'm wondering if they have a power plant of sorts. And also thinking about in the district, that is the location for many of our DPW service trucks and what have you. So that might be a conclusion we can reach, but I don't know.
And then it's how do we transition out of those poor polluting services? We have an incinerator that we've been trying to get rid of in our county. And by 2026, the contract ends and we have to figure out a way to process the recycling, the trash, but it's hurting the community and people aren't doing well. And so we should start thinking about ways to transition out of those
All right, I think we have an exciting agenda that we're pouring into our work plan for.
But it has to be
For real.
stated in this work plan.
Yeah.
It can't just be a version of the public. I think it has to be an overarching priority, theme, integrated, not considered, but integrated.
Well, when I look at, the actual work plan, the narrative, if you have a copy, I think what we're, okay, all right. Well, under the public participation, I think we can start there. It does talk about, the goal is to inform the decision makers, but I think it's also not necessarily exclusive inform, but to also collect data, to have some feedback.
It should inform the
So
research.
inform and receive feedback.
It should inform the research.
Okay, and it goes on about air quality improvements, issues and challenges. And we can add to it and, the data, the research that's been done.
I have to say, Madam Chair, I had no idea about all this until constituents brought it up. Literally, I was campaigning in front of the polling station, saying, you know something? These leaks are horrible. It's the entire neighborhood smells, and I don't know what to do. It took quite a while to get Washington Gas to be at all responsive to that and recognize that, you know, it's their infrastructure.
Right.
And it affects the air of everybody, actually.
Yeah.
Just local.
We're thinking about regional control measures. What are we doing across the region to ensure that we're lowering the emissions, to ensure we're prioritizing the places with the worst numbers? I mean, these are questions that should be asked for every area of this, not just the public's engagement. So do we have to vote on this work plan?
Yes, we will be voting on the work plan and we're,
With the amendments?
we're attempting to amend a section of the work plan, but I think, at least the way we do it in DC is we approve the plan, then we do the amendments to the plan. So I will entertain a motion if there's no.
That's the problem. This is DC, Maryland, Virginia. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I mean, as, I'm just putting on the table how we do it. How would you like to do it? And let's hear from you and others as well.
I would like a racial equity lens applied to every section of the work. I don't think we need to compartmentalize how to apply racial equity when it touches every aspect of it.
All right, and what I'm suggesting as a procedure, we will approve the plan. If we approve the plan, then we can come back and amend it with adding the racial equity clause as a part of each of the divisions within the plan. Okay, I thought you might meant that in Maryland, you vote different. When we do it. So to those on virtual and to,
Will we move it with the amendment?
I think first we want to move the plan and then we will come back and do the amendment. Okay. So if there is no further discussion, I'll ask for a motion to accept the plan.
So moved.
All right, it's so moved, and is there a second? And second, it's been second. So all in favor of the work plan, would you signify with the sound of aye? Aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, hearing none, we have approved the work plan unanimously, and now I'll entertain any amendments. And we have an amendment coming in, Councilwoman Scales? Sales. All right,
Madam Chair, I'd like to move an amendment to incorporate a racial equity lens across the fiscal year 2024 work program.
okay, racial equity lens across the entire work plan, each of the divisions, which includes, I will try to be quick with this so that we all have the same understanding. It starts with the,
Emissions inventory
yep,
development.
the
The project management.
okay, emissions inventory development, regional control measures, transportation conformity, public participation, and then the MWAC support indirectly, and of course, that would be the amendment. So,
I have a suggestion.
all right,
So in the work program, in the official document here, up at the very top where we have MWAC objectives and we have a bullet list of all these different objectives. How about just adding a bullet in here that says incorporate racial equity,
lens,
incorporate
a racial
equity lens into the core work program areas?
Yes, we can do that.
So I will add that to Tom.
So I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you. So we are ready to vote. All in favor, signify sign of aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, so the amendment passes unanimously, and thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone. And I think we've learned that when we have a full agenda, it takes full time. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Everyone. And just remember, we're adjourned. And our next meeting is September 27th, 2023.
Right.
And we can appear in person. And we probably will have sandwiches as well. Thank you all so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.